When you talk about the history of decentralized finance, DeFi, there are a few names that are just impossible to ignore, and Compound is right at the top of that list. It's more than just another protocol, it's a genuine cornerstone, a project that literally laid the tracks for so much of what we see today.
I mean, it's no exaggeration to say that back in 2020, Compound didn't just make a splash, it kicked off a tidal wave. By creating this whole new way to give out its governance token, it basically lit the fuse for that explosive period we all call DeFi Summer. And it became the playbook that tons of other projects follow.
But that brings us to the central mystery here. After building a DeFi empire, after surviving some pretty serious crises, Compound made this absolutely stunning pivot. It decided to build its entire future on the technology of a direct competitor. So how did that happen? Well, this is the story of a pioneer's long journey and how it led to one of the most talked about decisions in all of DeFi.
Okay, so to really get why they made that choice, we've got to rewind. We have to go back to the beginning, to the core idea that changed everything. Compound, becoming what we now know as DeFi's very first money Lego.
Before Compound, lending in crypto was, well, it was clunky. It was all peer-to-peer. You had to actually find another person who wanted to borrow what you were lending, or vice versa. You had to negotiate rates, terms. It was slow. Compound completely flipped the script with this revolutionary idea, peer-to-protocol. Instead of dealing with a person, you interact with a smart contract. Think of it like an automated robot banker on the blockchain. It manages this giant pool of money that's available 24/7. No haggling, no waiting, just instant code-driven finance.
And this innovation was so huge because it created the very first true money Lego. The concept is actually pretty simple. If you can standardize a financial service, you can turn it into a programmable block. And just like with Lego bricks, other developers can then easily stack, connect, and build on top of your block to create even cooler, more complex things.
The way they pulled this off was just brilliant. First, they got rid of individual people and replaced them with one massive pool of money. Second, they made all the assets in that pool totally interchangeable. But this third step, this was the magic. They standardized the receipt you get when you deposit money, the C token. This C token was an ERC20, which is like a universal blueprint for tokens on Ethereum. And because it was standardized, any other developer in the world could now plug their project directly into Compound. It was the perfect foundation.
So, with this incredibly powerful technology in place, Compound was about to pour gasoline on the fire. Its next move wasn't just a tech update. It would literally invent a whole new economic model for the industry.
So, in June of 2020, Compound started giving out its governance token, COMP, to anyone who was using the protocol. The more you supplied or borrowed, the more COMP tokens you earned. This created this insane incentive loop, right? People just flooded into the protocol to farm these free tokens. This whole practice got nicknamed liquidity mining or yield farming, and it just triggered an absolute explosion across all of DeFi.
And a huge reason this worked so well was the distribution. Look at this. A massive 42.3% of all the tokens were set aside specifically for the protocol's users. The goal here was generally radical. It was to hand over control of this multi-million-dollar protocol to the people actually using it, creating a true decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO.
But, this kind of decentralization is a classic double-edged sword. On one hand, you're empowering the community. But on the other, you're suddenly dealing with all the messy parts of human politics. You get problems like voter apathy, where most people just don't bother to vote. And you get the constant risk of wealthy whales using their huge piles of tokens to push their own agendas. These weren't just theories. They became very real, very fast.
So this brand new system of tech and governance, it was about to get tested in a major way. In the wild, high-stakes world of DeFi, it's never a question of if you'll face a crisis, it's just a matter of when. And in 2021, that when arrived. The protocol faced its biggest crisis ever. A bug in a new proposal accidentally let users claim a frankly insane amount of comp rewards, draining the treasury of nearly $150 million.
And here's the wild part. The cause wasn't some super sophisticated hack or a grand conspiracy. It was a single typo, one character. In a governance proposal, a developer wrote the less than symbol instead of less than or equal to. That's it. And it created this infinite money glitch. It was a painful, multi-million-dollar lesson that the boring process of governance itself is a massive security risk.
So, Compound survived a technical failure, but pretty soon, it would have to face a human one. In 2024, the community was staring down a totally different kind of threat, one that would test the political strength of its DAO.
A group of powerful token holders managed to pass a proposal to, get this, transfer $24 million worth of comp from the community's treasury into a wallet that they controlled. Security experts from Open Zeppelin didn't mince words. They called it exactly what it was, a malicious attempt to steal funds, dressed up to look like some kind of investment strategy.
The community went into overdrive. They created huge public pressure. They put forward counter-proposals. And in the end, the attack was called off. But here's the fascinating twist. The crisis became a catalyst. It acted as what you might call a forcing function. It pushed the DAO to finally deal with a problem they'd been kicking down the road for ages, the fact that just holding comp tokens didn't earn you anything. The solution? A new staking plan that would finally share protocol fees with token holders, making the whole system economically stronger. The attack, as hostile as it was, actually forced a positive change.
So the crucial point is this. After creating a new way to do finance, after surviving these near-death experiences, Compound was stronger, sure, but the world around it had also evolved, and it was about to make its most radical, most controversial move yet.
This table really shows you the shifting landscape. You have the original pioneers, like Compound and Aave, who kept everything in-house. Risk management, creating new markets, it was all controlled by their own DAOs. But then this new challenger, Morpho, came along with a totally different approach. It outsourced risk and made creating new markets permissionless, so anyone could build on its base layer. Suddenly, Compound was getting squeezed.
And this represented a huge paradigm shift. The old way was the monolithic protocol, one project that tried to do everything. It bundled the deep infrastructure, the risk management, and the user app all into one package. The new model, championed by Morpho, is the aggregated stack. It unbundles all those layers. It provides a shared, super efficient foundation, and then lets a whole market of different apps and brands, like Compound, compete on top of it.
So Compound had to make a choice. And in a really fiercely debated vote, the DAO approved a proposal to launch its newest lending products using Morpho's technology. The critics called it a surrender, an admission that their own tech just couldn't compete anymore, and the debate got even more intense because of accusations of conflicts of interest. The firm that wrote the proposal, and even Compound's own founder, had financial ties to Morpho.
This decision fundamentally changed the answer to a very simple question. What even is Compound now?
Compound has transformed. It's really moved on from being a pure tech company that builds all its own infrastructure from the ground up. It's become something more like a decentralized financial institution. Its new job is to use its brand, its treasury, and its expertise in managing risk to build the best products it can on top of the most efficient, shared infrastructure it can find, no matter who built it.
And this brings us to a final, pretty deep thought. Compound's journey from pioneer to pragmatist, it kind of reflects the maturing of the entire DeFi space. It suggests a future that might not be dominated by a few single giant protocols, but by a really vibrant competitive ecosystem built on top of shared foundations. And it leaves us with this question. When the ground you broke becomes common property for everyone, is a pioneer's true legacy the foundation they built, or is it having the wisdom to build upon someone else's?